Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and again, it's going to be longer than 5 minutes because, again, we're carrying on our best of 2022. Usually at this point when I'm doing reviews, I'd hold up a comic book to show you which one it was, and it's my own fault. This one, I thought we had a copy of the last session from Mad Cave Studios on the shelves over there. Turns out we'd sold out of it, and Diamond UK were out of stock, so I couldn't get it back in. So I don't actually have something to hold up. What I'm going to do is take my list home with me tonight and make sure I pull one copy of everything I'm going to need, so there's always going to be a decent picture of these up. The thumbnail you're going to see if you're watching this on YouTube is one that I've just thrown together, and it looks terrible. I genuinely don't know anything about graphic design. I do apologise. But enough of that. We're talking about a really good comic book, and yes, this is like the lowest entry in the best of the year, but that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be read. But the one thing that may affect your enjoyment of it, or may mean you choose not to read it, is the reason why it's on here is I'm a tabletop role player, and this is a comic book about role playing. Those kind of things are always going to get my attention. When the Die comic book came out, I mainly picked it up, not really knowing that much about Kieran Gillen or Stephanie Hans, but it was a riff on the old D&D cartoon from when I was a kid, or Goth Jumanji as he often referred to as. So yeah, role-playing comics going to pick up, and this one worked for me, and it worked for me in a variety of different ways. First off, at no point was role-playing the butt of any jokes, which, I mean, it should go without saying. It does still happen every once in a while. Yes, it's certainly cooler, or at least more acceptable to be a role-player these days, but it still happens every once in a while, same as for heavy metal. So I see my hands are very cold here. Yeah, heavy metal can still be the butt of a joke, role-playing can still be the butt of a joke as well, but this one it isn't. In fact, it's a really nice story of inclusion and progressiveness, which is really, really good, because I got into role-playing when I was about 14, 15 years old, and I met some people when I was about 17 that I'm still friends with now, and I'm nigh on 45 years old. So role-playing has been a big part of my life, and some of the people I'm friends with, I've been to their weddings, I've been around to their houses, we spent Christmases together. These are like genuinely good friends. And although role-playing is still, sadly, far more of a white male-oriented hobby than anything else, the society I joined, very luckily, was really inclusive. It's still, you're going to veer more towards white men than anything else, but it's nice that anyone who's turned up who has been, like, within themselves as a minority, has been well treated and well respected, and we're invited and celebrated. And we push that quite often because we don't like the idea of role-playing being what it used to be, which was just a thing the dudes played, and we'll look down because they played it in their mum's basement or whatever horrible things you want to say about role players. But it can have that kind of feel to it sometimes, and it's certainly presented that way in a lot of popular media. But we were never that kind of role player. We played for fun, we played for the social aspect, we played because we want to hang out with our friends, and that's very much where the last session goes. It is a story of a LGBTQIA plus support group who meet up, and while waiting for the meeting to start talking about role playing and start playing, and end up becoming a group of actual friends because of it. The only real point of contention in it is there's a new person who wants to join the group, and it's not that there's any kind of issue with queer drama or any kind of queer pain coming on from this. It's nothing to do with that. It's full of queer joy, in fact. It's just friendship where it gets tested slightly because people have moved on with their lives and going down different paths, and people aren't as close as they used to be. And when you're going to write queer stories, I think, it's silly to ignore the fact that there is homophobia and transphobia and a whole bunch of other things going on there. But making the focus of the story, I think, is selling short what makes up far more of trans and queer people's lives. And that is them just living their life and trying their best to be the people they've always wanted to be and feel comfortable in their own skin. And role-playing gives people a chance to do that. It gives people sometimes a chance to play around with it. I watched a brilliant video recently of drag being this idea to shift away from societal expectations and be the person you kind of would like to have a better chance to be. And drag is a great way of doing it. Role playing is a similar way of doing it. There's a wonderful bit in the Matrix movie where in the original script, Switch was supposed to be a trans character, and I thought, yeah, that works. I've known a lot of people who I've known for many, many years who played gender-swapped characters, and some of them have actually ended up being trans, and it's like, yeah, that's brilliant. I like the fact that this is an inclusive hobby. All that being said, those are my reasons for loving the story just for doing that. Now, as a comic book, it's got to also be great, because I'm not going to put on this list just because it's in my wheelhouse. Like I could have done that for a whole bunch of extra stuff in here that I just enjoyed because I enjoy this kind of storytelling and I enjoy this kind of setting. But it's also great. It's really well written. All the relationships are very human and very authentic. Obviously, it's been well researched and people have been spoken to and make sure that nobody's misrepresented, and it comes across as just a bunch of humans. The queerness is certainly part of them, but it's not the focus of the story in the way that I think some people may have written it. It's a story about a role-playing group who happen to be queer and trans, and yeah, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. And it's authentically done as a tabletop adventure as well. And this one is more about role-playing and less about my other interests. And it is just easy to write a story about role players where the plot doesn't necessarily have to make much sense. As much as I'd like Community, there are moments where that's a very odd role playing way of doing a role playing game. Even worse with Big Bang Theory. But this comic book, it reads like an actual story that I would be part of if I was in a role playing group. It works brilliantly. It's fantastic. Obviously, again, well researched. Thrown into that the fantastic artwork. I actually remember the artist was called Dozer Draws, and I really love their stuff. They have a nice little knack of taking a look of a character in the real world or the comic book world and transposing them into the character they're playing in the RPG. And they're similar enough that you will always be able to get it, but it mostly goes down to the way they're written, the dialogue choices, the language they use, the personalities we have for them shows who they are. And it's not close enough that I'm worried because again I'm a role player. I've played multiple role playing characters over many years, and none of them look like me. I am far from the most heroic looking chap in the world. You probably can't tell this, but hell, I call myself Shorty. I'm not a tall guy, and the only reason I look bulky right now is I'm wearing several layers. It's very cold. You create characters to be a form of fantasy escapism, and that's fine. Making all the characters look just like they would do if it was the real character in a fantasy world, no, that's not how it works. And again, it just feels authentic, and it looks fantastic. If you ever thought about trying role-playing, and there's stuff like Critical Role out there, and Adventure Zone and things like that, they are great. Try this one to get a sense of what it means to actually just be kind of normal people around a tabletop. With all our quirks and flaws, we're all interesting and we all have stories to tell, and role-playing gives people a chance to do it, and a comic book about role-playing means it's a story about a story, and even that appeals to me. Right, so I've gone over my 5 minutes by a little bit there, but never mind. I will be back tomorrow with hopefully another review and another one of my countdown. This is number 14, by the way, so I've still got a bit more to go before the big reveal of my best comic of the year on Christmas Eve. If you don't want to miss out on anything, make sure you hit the like, subscribe thing. Obviously, you know what to do by now. You're all better at social media than I am. I mean, just have a look at the thumbnail on the YouTube video. I'm not great with computers. But until I see you all again, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.